I'm Dave Silverbrand. Thank you for joining us at Access Humboldt Studio for election-related talks. And my guests today are Carolyn Crnich, the Humboldt County's clerk and recorder, Registrar of Voters, and Kelly Sanders. She's the Assistant County Registrar, and you'll be the successor to Carolyn.
Yes.
Exactly what day we were talking about that exactly? In January, right?
Yes, I believe I'm sworn in on January the 12th.
Mm-hmm. And one of the reasons that we wanted to have you here today is because a lot of people don't realize a whole lot about your job. I'm sure you know that when things go right, you don't hear anything. When things go, sort of like the news business. When things go wrong, everybody's screaming.
Sure.
So give me an idea, Carolyn, something about what it is your job is, what's involved.
That's a good question, because a lot of people think that elections are something that just happen on a Tuesday. Mm-hmm. And actually maintaining voter registration rolls is a year-round process. Every day we're updating because someone moved or wanted to change their political affiliation, something like that. So keeping those voter rolls updated is a constant thing. But we also, at election time, have to be very aware of the laws that apply to when candidates can register and when things are supposed to appear on the ballot, and how many candidates will be elected, and who can run, what the qualifications are, and so on. That's a pre-election function. After the filing for those positions has taken place, and petitions also get run through our office, signatures verified. But after all that is done, then we prepare a ballot for the election, making sure that each precinct gets a ballot that includes all of the races that they're entitled to vote on and none of the races that they're not. Mm-hmm. So that's a pretty tedious process as well. And then we have to find polling places for each of the precincts. We have to train poll workers and get the ballots printed and all the supplies ready and delivered to those polling places before Election Day. And then Election Day, oh, did I mention training? We have to train poll workers as well. And then Election Day comes, they do their thing, and then we start counting ballots. And that's a process that goes on for several days after the election, just to make sure that the required processes are followed and nobody votes twice and so on.
Yeah. Now, and Kelly, you're in the process of course, you've worked in the office, I think you said already about 9 years, is that correct?
Yes.
So you've seen a lot already, but has something about the process surprised you, or what have you learned over the past few months, sort of job shadowing Carolyn?
There's a lot of detail, a lot of regulations that need to be followed, and if everybody makes their cue, everything goes off smoothly. But there's a few hitches every once in a while, but I think we've got a really competent election staff. They're all very well trained, and I think we were able to conduct every election in the most efficient and effective manner possible, ensuring that every citizen that's registered to vote in Humboldt County gets the opportunity to vote.
Mm-hmm. But, which leads me to another question about the opportunity to vote. And again, I don't think people realize the extent that you would go to make sure that people have an opportunity to vote. You don't necessarily have to live in a house with 4 walls to vote in this county, do you?
That's true, yes.
To what extent do you go, or have you gone, to make sure people vote, or can vote?
Well, trying to get every eligible person who wishes to vote registered to vote has been one of the biggest challenges. I understand that the percentage in California is not as high as elsewhere in the United States. So it's important that we try to register everyone who is entitled to vote. And you don't have to have a brick and mortar home to be eligible to vote. You have to have a place that you consider your residence, which could be in a natural surrounding, shall we say, someplace that we can apply a precinct to that person to make sure that they get the correct ballot and are not moving around to vote on things that they're not entitled to vote on.
Mm-hmm. Just a reminder, we're talking with Carolyn Crnich, who's the Humboldt County Clerk and Recorder, Register of Voters, and Kelly Sanders, who is her successor. It's such a fascinating topic. And as I said, there's a lot, still waters run deep, I guess you might say. There's a lot that goes on there that a lot of people don't realize. Tell me something about your work day. What kind of goes into...
Well, it's much different during an election season than it is when we're away from an election. I am very fortunate in that for all of my career in this position, I've had very competent staff to work with. And so when I'm at the elections office, the folks in the recorder's office can do an excellent, they know where to contact me if they need me, but they're very competent and can run that office in my absence. Again, knowing where to contact me. And same with elections, that everybody knows their job and they are able to maintain and they know where to get a hold of me. But typically, we have just, depending on the time of year, a lot of different tasks that come into it. At one point in the day, you might be proofreading candidate statements for the sample ballot, and later in the day, you're making sure that the precincts are consolidated correctly so that everybody's going to go to the correct polling place. And that day might end with proofreading the ballots to make sure that you got all of the contests on the proper ballot. Mm-hmm. So in the election that's coming up in November of this year, we have 14 different ballot types, so that people in Ferndale, for example, have only the things that apply statewide, countywide, and to Ferndale, and they're not voting on the races in Blue Lake or something like that. So each precinct pretty much gets their own ballot. Some of them have things in common, and some of them don't. So.
And Kelly, what's the best way for somebody to find out who they're voting for or what they're voting about? All that basic information.
They can contact our office. We can tell them where they're registered to vote and give them a rundown of what districts they live in. Their sample ballot booklet will also show them all of the offices and districts that they're eligible to vote in, that sort of thing.
Mm-hmm. And how do you remind people how to vote? In other words, do you get a lot of people calling up saying, I don't even know how to register, or what should I do, that sort of thing?
There's a lot of information on our website that's very helpful. It instructs people how they can register to vote. There are a number of different ways to do that. One of the easiest for people seems to be to register online, and there's a link on the county website that directs them directly to the Secretary of State's website so they can register electronically. They can also contact the elections office and we will mail them a voter registration form. We also have voter registration forms available at all of the local post offices and local libraries if they want to just pop in one of those places, if that's the easiest way for them to do it. But that's generally the easiest way to register to vote.
And one of the things I've noticed since I moved recently, which would put me in a different precinct, is that somehow or other you got the message that I did. I don't know how that works, but it does somehow. How does that?
We get updates from the U.S. Post Office, but it's also important that the voter themselves take the initiative to fill out a new voter registration card. And online is a very simple way to do it. You can do it from home. Mm-hmm. If you have changed your residence or anything like that, it could be that you may have registered a vehicle or a boat at some other location and your registration was changed. So you need to notify us if that was the case so that we have you in the correct precinct.
Again, a reminder, we're talking with Carolyn Crnich and Kelly Sanders, in the Humboldt County Clerk's Recorder and Registrar of Voters Office. And thanks for talking with us. Tell me something about voter response, the turnout, because I guess it depends a lot of times on how significant the election is. Is it a national election? Do people care? What's the history been with that?
Well, I think typically we see the biggest turnout in a presidential election. And my personal feeling about that is that it's because people become aware and involved and passionate about it. When local campaigns take on that same fervor, then voters become passionate, they register, and they get out and vote. When it is, for example, in odd-numbered years, we have typically just one election that we refer to as the UDEL, the Uniform District Election Law, which provides an opportunity for all of the school districts and special districts, community services districts, et cetera, to elect members to their boards. Those typically are not highly publicized campaigns, and so the voter involvement and the voter turnout seems to be much less. Likewise, but to a little bit greater extent, when there's a city race going on, you see a lot of signs, you wonder what's going on, people study up on it, they register to vote, and they get involved. Even more people when it's a county level, more people when it's a state level, and the most when it's a presidential election.
Mm-hmm. And it makes me wonder, because I wonder about this all the time, about how social media has changed the way everybody looks at the world, and I wonder what effect that might have on local elections per se.
I think that would probably contribute to the candidate getting out there and more people hearing their message or seeing their face. And I think that would probably be the impact. Again, the more people that see it, the more will register, the higher the turnout might be.
Mm-hmm. Kelly, in your opinion, if somebody were to say, and I'm sure they do, why bother, one vote doesn't matter? I know I see your blood pressure rising already. Kelly, what would you say to somebody about that?
I think that you want the legislators to know how you feel about the things that happen in your community, whether it's law enforcement or healthcare or whatever. And if the best way for them to hear your voice is through your vote. And if you don't vote, you're allowing others in the community to speak on your behalf. Mm-hmm. So I think it's extremely important to vote, especially at the local level.
Yeah. Which leads me to the next question, is there are a couple of measures, at least on the ballot, that have to do with law enforcement and public safety this coming fall. And I'm wondering, since that's very high on the list of people's local concerns, if you've detected any spike, shall we say, in interest in that, or do we even know?
Well,
yet?
I think that if there is to be a spike, I think it's yet to come, because the word's just starting now to get out about it, and we have a while before those campaigns get really rolling in high gear. But to go back to the what does one vote count, I think that it's easy to look around our community, the elections that have happened in Humboldt County and the cities here, and see, for example, a mayor's race that was decided by 5 votes, that was even on election night, and not until after the final canvass, the 2 candidates were separated by only 5 votes. The percentages become so small, the bigger the population you have, that it is, yes, one vote does count in Humboldt County.
Mm-hmm. And you've got to keep up with the technology of voting too, don't you?
Yes, yes.
How do you do that?
Well, in 2002, the Help America Vote Act was passed that allowed funds for new handicapped accessible voting equipment. And so we installed about $650,000 worth of that in the early 2000s, mid 2000s. Most recently, though, one thing that has helped us a lot is the electronic poll book, where rather than looking your name up when you go to the polls, looking your name up on a printed roster, they have basically a little computer there that will have the name of all of the voters that can vote in this precinct. And even more than just finding the voter, making sure that they're at the right place, it can direct them to the correct place if they're not where they're supposed to be. And at the end of the election, when we're doing our canvass and updating the vote histories of every voter that voted in that precinct, it's a matter of downloading the information into our database rather than going through and individually noting each person that voted, maybe a couple of hundred at each polling place. So it's a huge time saver for us, and it assures accuracy at the polling place as well.
So typically on an election night, when you have the polls closed, how soon are things pretty well wrapped up that you know, at least initially?
10 days before the election, we can start processing the vote by mail ballots that we've received. So ideally, on election night, we will have opened and sorted all of the vote by mail ballots that we had received through the Saturday before the election on Tuesday. That means we've looked at compared the signatures on the envelope, the return envelope, to the signatures on their voter registration card. We have sorted them by precinct. We have made sure there are no errant marks on the ballot that would cause it to be counted incorrectly, and scanned those through our electronic equipment that's going to count the votes. So at 8 o'clock on election night, when the polls close, we can actually tally those ballots that we had received as of Tuesday, as of Monday, before the election. Then we have to wait then until the equipment starts returning to the elections office, which means that the poll workers have finished their end of the day audit and buttoned everything up and brought their equipment back to the elections office, and we can then remove the memory card and upload it into the same system, and those votes are added to that total. And when we have a state election such as this one or a federal election, we have to report each time we upload another batch of ballots. We report those to the Secretary of State so that they can keep track of and add them to the totals for all the rest of the counties for those other offices, state and federal.
Now, Kelly, you've had some experience with volunteers, having worked for the Jazz Festival for as long as you have, so you know what you're getting into when you're. Is it like herding cats, or what do you do? I mean, what's the trick to getting everybody literally on the same page on the same day?
We've got some really great poll workers, and we've had great success in recruitment. However, we are always looking for new people. We've got a great training program in place. Carolyn's been doing the majority of the training, but that's going to be shifted over to myself and one of my other staff members here pretty quickly. But we schedule quite a bit of training, and we try to make it as accessible and convenient for the poll workers as possible. We'll set up trainings for them in not just in Eureka, but we'll go out to the outlying areas. We'll set up a training program in Willow Creek, in McKinleyville, in Arcata, and Fortuna, and Southern Humboldt, and try to make it as easy for the poll workers to get to training as possible, because most of them are having to take time off of work to not only go to the training, but also to work on election day. So we do try to make things as easy as possible for them. We'll have refresher courses for them on how to set up their equipment and how that operates if they need a refresher course. If they're a first-time precinct inspector, that would be the head of a group. We have an inspectors roundtable just for first-time inspectors. So we have a pretty thorough training program in place for our poll workers.
Let me just remind you that we're talking with Carolyn Crnich, Humboldt County's clerk, recorder, and registrar of voters. That's a very long title. You're just going to be Carolyn Crnich after
I am,
January.
comma, retired.
Retired. And Kelly Sanders, who was her successor. And I thank you both for sharing this information with us. If somebody wants to be a volunteer or involved in the process, what's the best way to do that?
Contact us any way they can, and by phone, by mail, but online is the easiest. There's a poll worker application on our website.
Mm-hmm. And if somebody has never voted before, wants to find out about voting, what's the best way to do that?
Again, they can get a lot of information off of our website and the Secretary of State's website, but if they don't have a computer access, they can always call our office and we'll help them through any steps that they have questions with.
Can you explain the process of voting by mail or absentee voting? Or
Vote by mail is available to any registered voter. You don't have to be, you don't have to have an excuse that you can be out of town or you're ill or anything like that. Anybody can vote by mail in your slippers at your kitchen table over coffee in the morning if you wish, and take your time to do it. It's a great way to make sure that your vote gets counted if you apply for that. Applying for a vote by mail ballot is simple too. When you receive your sample ballot, there's an application on the back of that. If you return that, we'll send you your vote by mail ballot. You can register as there's an indication on that form also if you would like to be considered a permanent vote by mail voter, or if you want to just vote by mail for this one occasion. But getting it into us quickly, you can check your check online. We usually start about a week or two after the vote by mail ballots go out, so a couple weeks before the election. Updating our website with all of the voters who have returned their mail. So you put in a little confidential information and identify yourself, and it will say that yes, we've received your ballot and it will be counted, or it has been challenged. Perhaps you forgot to sign the envelope, or perhaps some medical condition has caused your handwriting to change. For some reason we couldn't accept that ballot. So it gives you an opportunity to make the correction and make sure that your ballot gets counted.
how would you determine that somebody's handwriting has changed? I mean,
Well, to tell you the truth, we're not looking for a reason to throw out a ballot. We're looking for reasons to keep it. And people don't write their signature exactly the same every time.
Mm-hmm.
But you can find a number of similarities.
Mm-hmm.
Also, if we have time, if you have returned your ballot early enough and we have time, we will contact that voter, preferably by phone, and let them know that we're not going to be able to count that ballot. It's been challenged, and give them the opportunity to have us, do you want us to send it back to you so you can sign that envelope, or would you like to come in and show us that your signature has changed? Or you can go to the polling place and vote a provisional ballot. And if it was challenged before, we'll check it out and count it.
Yeah. So I guess this is the point of the conversation where I can ask you to kind of reflect on the time that you spent in that office, and what's been the most rewarding thing for you, the most rewarding experience?
Well, you know, it's given me the opportunity to meet people that I wouldn't have had the opportunity to meet. And I'm not talking about celebrities or politicians, but poll workers and voters right here in Humboldt County, the real people that make things work, make democracy work in our little county, our little corner of the world. Also, the passion of some volunteers has been amazing. Some of the people in our county are truly a gift, and we need to appreciate that. And I truly do. They've helped us with, as poll workers, as volunteers in other things. Putting on an election, the election, I feel, is the foundation of our democracy. And to put on an election takes a lot of work, a lot of human involvement, and more than one or two people could ever accomplish. But the county, the volunteers seem to come together as a team, not just to make sure that our election has been conducted properly and openly, but after the election to verify that it has been done transparently and that the results that have been published are actually the way people voted. There's nothing underhanded or sly about the way the ballots were counted, the way the election was conducted, and I think it's thanks to those volunteers that we're able to do that.
And not to be too corny about it, but I think the nature of the media these days, that we can see so many places in the world where that doesn't happen, where the election process is not beyond reproach the way it is here. That should be reminder enough to know how lucky we are to be here.
I think so.
Don't you think so?
I do. And also, it's not just other places in the world, but other places in the United States. I don't understand the laws of some states and feel like, how could they really do it that way?
Yeah.
You know, we're all electing the same president, but each state has different rules, something that I would hope would be a thing of the past at some point.
What sort of things have you learned from Carolyn, Kelly, as you get ready for your task?
I've learned the importance of transparency in government, especially in elections. I've learned from her what it takes to be a leader. I've learned a lot of things from Carolyn. She's been a great teacher and a mentor and a good friend, and I'm going to miss her at the office. I know that she will be available to me on occasion if I need to pick her brain on something, and she's also promised to be a poll worker, so I'm going to hold her to that.
If they accept my application.
Okay, good. Is there anything you want to add? I guess we could sort of sum up how people would want to find out how to be voters if they're not, or how to...
If you are 18 years of age and a U.S. citizen and are not currently on parole or incarcerated, those are the basic requirements, that you're a citizen and 18 years of age. Register to vote. It's easy. Just go online, and it's very simple.
And yeah, go ahead.
And at the same time, you can apply for a vote-by-mail ballot. We'll send it to you as soon as the ballots are available and as soon as we receive your request, and vote that ballot and return it to us.
And tell me something before we finish up about the Humboldt Election Transparency Project.
That's a project that was started in Humboldt County, obviously, well, we started working on it in the mid-2000s, and now every election we have a group of volunteers who come in, and if anybody would like to support our project and help us with that scanning part of it, every ballot that is counted in an election is then again on a separate and freestanding system, scanned, and the image is saved for anybody to look at. They can use a system that was developed by Mitch Trachtenberg, the TEV system, which is available free online and after each election. And they can examine the ballots themselves, do their own count. They don't have to use that. They can develop their own software. They can do a hand tally of them if they wish, but verify that the work that we've done is correct and the results are reported accurately.
So in other words, you kind of try to take the doubt out of an election.
That's exactly the case, that there is no doubt. If you don't believe me, count them yourself.
Has that happened a lot? Or?
Yes.
So obviously it seems to be working.
I hope so. I think it is.
Kelly, any changes you're going to make, just really briefly?
I just hope that I can carry on the tradition of excellence that Carolyn has provided for our community over the years that she's been there.
Thank you.
And I'm really looking forward to the position and working with the community members.
Well, thank you, and I have enjoyed over the years working with both of you, and wish you both good luck in the future. I'm
Thank
sure
you,
you would
Dave.
do the same for me.
Indeed.
Okay, thank you for joining us. We've been talking with Carolyn Crnich, the Humboldt County Clerk, Recorder, Registrar of Voters, and Kelly Sanders, who is taking her place in January. I want to wish you both good luck and a happy election, peaceful election, and we shall talk to you soon.
Great. Thank you.
And I'm Dave Silverbrand. Thank you so much for watching us. Have a good day.